Listening 149. Listen and read.
The Prince and the Pauper.
The Prince and the Pauper.
Tom Canty was a boy from a very poor family.
Tom Canty was a boy from a very poor family.
His clothes were old and dirty, and he never had enough food.
His clothes were old and dirty, and he never had enough food.
However, Tom believed that he could have a better life one day.
However, Tom believed that he could have a better life one day.
He was clever, and he knew how to read and write.
He was clever and he knew how to read and write.
He wanted to get a good job and earn enough money to have a house, clothes, and good food.
He wanted to get a good job and earn enough money to have a house, clothes, and good food.
One day, Tom was outside the palace gates when he saw Prince Edward.
One day, Tom was outside the palace gate when he saw Prince Edward.
Tom stood and watched the prince for a while.
Tom stood and watched the prince for a while.
The guards tried to send Tom away, but the prince stopped them.
The girls tried to send Tom away, but the prince stopped them.
The two boys were very surprised when they saw each other.
The two boys were very surprised when they saw each other.
They had very different lives, but they
had very different lives, but they looked just the same.
looked just the same. They had the same eyes, the same hair, and the same faces.
They had the same eye, the same hair, and the same face.
The only thing that was different was their clothes.
The only thing that was different was their clothes.
Prince Edward invited Tom into the palace, and the two boys talked about their lives.
Prince Edward invited Tom into the place, and the two boys talked about their lives.
Edward had lots of money, fine clothes, jewels, and plenty of food. But he had to stay in the palace and be quiet and good all the time.
Edward has lots of money, fine clothes, jewels, and plenty of food, but he has to stay in the palace and he quiet and good all the time.
Tom had nothing, but he could play in the street with
Tom had nothing, but he could play in the streets
other boys and meet lots of interesting people.
with all the boys and meet lots of interesting people.
"I want to be like you," Tom said to Edward. "You are rich and you can have everything you want." "I want to be like you," Edward said to Tom.
I want to be like you, Tom said to Edward. You are rich and you can have everything you want. I want to be like you, Edward said to Tom.
"You are free and you can do everything you want."
You are free and you can do everything you want.
"Well, you look just like me, and we are the same age," said Edward.
Well, you look just like me and we are the same age.
"Let's swap clothes. You can
Let's wash clothes.
stay here, and I can live with your family for a while."
You can stay here and I can live with your family for a while.
Tom thought this was a wonderful idea.
Tom thought this was a wonderful idea.
The two boys swapped clothes, and looked at each other.
The two boys watched close and looked at each other.
We are like twins,
We are like twins,
Tom laughed.
Tom laughed.
Before Edward left the palace, he hid a wax disc in a suit of armor.
Before it was left place, he hid a watch disc in a suit of armor.
Then he left the palace quickly
Then he left the palace quickly.
before the guards found the two boys
Before the guard found the two boys together.
Soon, Edward was with Tom's family.
Soon Edward was with Tom's family,
But it was not much fun.
but it was not much fun.
Tom's father was unkind.
Tom's father was unkind.
He was often angry and he shouted at Edward all the time.
He was often angry and he shouted at Edward all the time.
Edward wanted to leave.
Edward wanted to leave.
He ran away and met a soldier called Miles Hendon.
He ran away and met a soldier called Miles Hendon.
He was a kind man and he looked after Edward.
He looked a kind man and he looked after Edward.
They had lots of adventures together.
They had lots of adventure together.
Didn't really like life outside the palace.
Edward didn't really like life outside the palace.
He saw that life was very difficult for poor people.
He saw that life was very difficult for poor people.
He decided to be a good king and help the people of England.
He decided to be a good king and help the people of England.
Meanwhile, Tom was pretending to be the prince.
Meanwhile, Tom was pretending to be the prince.
It wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy.
He didn't know how to act
He didn't know how to work
or what to say to people.
or what to say to people.
At first, people thought the prince was ill
At first, people thought the prince
because
was
he
ill
seemed so different.
because he seemed so different.
But Tom was a clever boy and he learnt quickly.
But Tom was a clever boy as he learned quickly.
He had lots of good ideas and he was good at making important decisions.
He had lots of good ideas and he was good at making important decisions.
Soon everyone was sure that the prince was well again.
Soon everyone was sure that the prince was well again.
Sadly, the king died while Edward was away.
Sadly, the king died while Edward was away.
Prince Edward was now the king of England.
Prince Edward was now the king of England.
Tom was very worried. He didn't want to be.
Tom was very worried. He didn't want to be king.
Luckily, Edward heard the news and came back to the palace.
Luckily, Edward heard the news and came back to the palace.
He arrived just in time.
He arrived
Tom
just in
was
time.
about to become the king of England.
Tom was about to become the king of England.
Edward and Tom tried to tell people the
Edward and Tom tried to tell people the
truth.
truth.
I'm not Prince Edward, said Tom. I'm Tom Canty.
I'm not Princess Edward, said Tom. I'm Tom Candy.
I'm the real prince, said Edward.
I'm the real prince, said Edward.
We're sorry we lied. It was only a game.
We are sorry we lied. It was only a game.
Edward looked poor and dirty, and people didn't believe that he was the real prince.
Edward looked poor and dirty, and people didn't believe that he was the real prince.
But Edward took the wax disc from the suit of armour and showed it to everyone.
But Edward looked the worst disc from the suit of armour and showed it to everyone.
The wax disc was the Great Seal of England.
The worst disc was the Great Seal of England.
Only the true King of England has the Great Seal.
Only the true King of England has the Great Seal.
So Edward became king. But he remembered his adventures and the lessons he learned when he was with Miles.
Soon, Edward became king, but he remembered his adventure and the lesson he learned when he was with Miles.
He was a good king, and he helped the people of England.
He was a good king and he helped the people of England.
He made sure that life was better for poor people.
He made sure that life was better for poor people.
People of England. He made sure that life was better for poor people. Edward and Tom were very good friends.
Edward and Tom were very good friends.
And Tom became a very important man.
And Tom became a very important man.
He was never poor or hungry again.
He was very poor or hungry again.
Listening